I have read a great many legal documents in my life. In 34 years on the federal bench, I signed my name to approximately 11,000 of them. Opinions, orders, injunctions, rulings on motions that determined the course of companies, lives, and in 3 cases I will carry with me until the end, whether a man lived or died. I know what a legal document looks like. I know what the language means, what the form signifies, what the procedural posture indicates before I reach the second paragraph. The certified letter arrived on a Thursday morning in November. I was at my desk, the same desk I have used for 40 years, the one Diane always said looked like something rescued from a demolition site, which it was, sorting through correspondence the way I have every Thursday morning for as long as I can remember. The return address on the envelope read County Probate Court. I recognized the format immediately. I had received documents from probate courts many times over my career, usually in my official capacity as a judge reviewing transferred matters. I opened it. The document inside was a notice of petition for emergency guardianship and conservatorship, filed by my son Derek as petitioner, accompanied by a psychiatric assessment submitted by a Dr. Raymond Patel, a geriatric psychiatrist, describing his clinical evaluation of one George Allen Caldwell, aged 71, and concluding that said subject demonstrated moderate cognitive impairment sufficient to constitute diminished capacity for complex financial and personal decision-making. I read it twice. I am a precise reader. I read the way a federal judge reads, slowly, with attention to every word, noting what is claimed and what is not, what the document establishes and what it assumes. I read Dr. Patel's assessment carefully from the first paragraph to the last. Then I sat very still at my old desk in the room where I had written 11,000 legal documents. I thought about a word I had used in opinions many times during my career on the bench: fraud. I picked up the phone and called Victor Lang. I did not call Derek. I knew exactly where Derek was. He and Monica were on day 11 of their vacation in the Maldives, a vacation I had not been told about in advance, a vacation that had begun, as I would later learn, exactly 3 days after Monica paid Dr. Patel $15,000 in cash. Before I tell you what I found when I examined Dr. Raymond Patel's psychiatric assessment and what was waiting for Derek and Monica at the airport when their flight landed on Thursday evening, I need you to understand something about the specific nature of what they attempted. A guardianship order, if granted, does not simply restrict a person's finances, it removes their legal personhood. The subject cannot sign a contract, cannot manage their own accounts, cannot make medical decisions, cannot dispose of their own property, cannot, in the eyes of the law, be trusted to determine what is in their own interest. They had attempted to make me, in the eyes of the law, while they were drinking cocktails on a private beach in the Indian Ocean, not a person. They had chosen the wrong person in every conceivable way. Tell me where you are watching from in the comments, and if you have ever had someone try to use the law itself, the system designed to protect you, as the instrument of what they intended to take from you. Like this video and subscribe to Calm Dad Stories, because what I am about to tell you is not simply a story about family betrayal. It is a story about what happens when someone underestimates exactly who they have chosen to come after. My name is George Caldwell. I am 71 years old. I served on the federal bench for 34 years. I was appointed to the district court at 37, the youngest appointment in my district's history at the time, and I presided in that courthouse for the next 3.5 decades. Criminal cases, civil matters, complex litigation involving companies, securities fraud, environmental liability, civil rights. Everything the federal docket produces in a mid-sized American city. I have reviewed thousands of psychiatric evaluations submitted as evidence in competency hearings. I have written opinions on guardianship abuse in elder populations on 5 separate occasions. I have sentenced people from the federal bench under federal statute for doing to others exactly what Monica arranged to have done to me. I know what fraudulent psychiatric documentation looks like. I have spent 34 years reading it. My wife Diane died 16 months before that certified letter arrived. Pancreatic cancer, 11 months from diagnosis to the morning she left. We had been married for 31 years. She had been, for the entirety of those years, the only person in my life who told me consistently when I was wrong and was consistently correct when she did so. She would have looked at Dr. Patel's assessment, handed it back to me, and said with the precision she brought to everything, "George, this man has never spent 30 minutes with you in his life." She would have been right. She almost always was. I had built over 34 years on the bench and 3 decades of disciplined saving, a net worth of approximately $4.2 million. Real estate, investment accounts, a family property in Vermont, and a modest private lending portfolio that Diane had helped me structure. I had been in the process, since her death, of establishing the Diane Caldwell Foundation for Elder Legal Rights, because guardianship abuse is a subject I understand with professional intimacy, and because watching Diane navigate end-of-life medical decisions had clarified for me that it is one of the places where the legal system fails people most consistently and most cruelly. Derek knew about the foundation. He knew it would direct a substantial portion of my estate away from direct inheritance. I believe that is when Monica began looking for a more direct route. Derek married Monica 8 years ago. She was 33 at the time, and she was intelligent and well-presented in a way that initially impressed me, which I note because 34 years on the federal bench has made me professionally skeptical of impressive presentations, and the fact that she cleared that bar speaks to how carefully she had constructed herself. Diane was not impressed. Diane watched Monica across dinner tables for 2 years and said, with the measured precision she brought to most observations, that Monica reminded her of certain witnesses she had seen in court documentaries, the ones who were exceptionally good at answering the question asked while carefully avoiding the question that mattered. I told her she was perhaps being ungenerous. She said she was perhaps being accurate. She was being accurate. After Diane died, I saw Monica perhaps 4 times in 16 months, the funeral, Thanksgiving, a brief visit in the summer, and in September, a visit initiated by Monica, in which she asked me, with apparent concern, whether I had thought about what would happen to the estate management if something happened to me before the foundation was fully established. I told her Victor Lang had handled every detail of the estate documents, and that I had no concerns. She nodded and said that sounded very sensible. 6 weeks after that conversation, Dr. Raymond Patel submitted a psychiatric assessment to the county probate court, declaring me moderately cognitively impaired. 6 weeks. Victor Lang was my personal attorney for 20 years. He handled all matters outside my judicial role, which was substantial over that period. He arrived at my house within 90 minutes of my phone call. We sat at the kitchen table, and I handed him the letter. He read it. He set it down. He said, "We need Robert Sanchez." Robert Sanchez was a financial crimes investigator with the FBI for 19 years before going into private practice. He had testified as an expert witness in 4 of my cases over the years, and I had found him in each instance to be the kind of witness who does not overstate and does not miss things. He arrived the following morning. The first thing Robert examined was Dr. Raymond Patel. Dr. Patel was a geriatric psychiatrist in private practice, 61 years old, with a clean record at the State Medical Board and 3 peer-reviewed publications in the field of elder cognitive assessment. His credentials were, on the surface, exactly what you would select if you were looking for a professional whose involvement would not immediately raise suspicion. His assessment described a clinical evaluation of me conducted on October 14th between 2 and 4 in the afternoon at my home. On October 14th, between 2 and 4 in the afternoon, I was at the courthouse attending the investiture of my former law clerk, Sarah Chen, who had just been elevated to the district bench. There are photographs from the ceremony, a printed program listing me among the attendees, a reception sign-in sheet bearing my signature, and 17 individuals who spoke with me that afternoon, including the Chief Justice of the district, who is not a man who socializes with people experiencing moderate cognitive impairment. Dr. Patel's assessment described a home visit that had not occurred. That was the first layer. Robert followed the money over the next 5 days. He found it on day 4. $15,000 transferred in 2 installments from a joint account held by Derek and Monica, received into an account held by a shell entity called Patel Medical Consulting, LLC, registered at the same address as Dr. Patel's private practice, but appearing nowhere in any of his professional filings. A company that existed, as far as Robert could determine, for no purpose other than receiving this payment. $15,000 for a fabricated assessment describing a home visit that had not taken place, in support of a petition that would have transferred legal control of $4.2 million to my son and his wife. That was the second layer. The third layer Robert uncovered on day 6, and it was the one that required me to make a call I had been considering since the first morning. Derek had, in the week before leaving for the Maldives, contacted a commercial real estate firm about listing the Vermont property. He had represented himself, in writing, as the prospective authorized agent for the property's disposition, an authority he did not hold and had never been granted. He had also contacted my investment advisory firm, requesting a meeting to discuss what he described as transitional account management, presenting himself as in the process of obtaining legal authority over my accounts. He had begun moving toward liquidation before the guardianship order was even granted. I sat with all of this spread across the kitchen table. Victor was across from me. Robert's report was between us. I thought about Diane, about 31 years, and about the foundation she had inspired, and about what she would have said if she were sitting across from me at that kitchen table. She would have said, "George, stop thinking about what you feel and think about what you know. What do you know?" I knew everything I needed to know. I told Victor to file the emergency motion to vacate the guardianship petition immediately, with the October 14th documentation, the financial transfers, and the real estate and investment inquiry records as supporting exhibits. Then I did the thing that required more discipline than anything else in this entire process. I did not call Derek. I let him enjoy the remaining 2 days of his vacation. Victor's emergency motion to vacate the guardianship petition was filed on a Friday morning. The county probate judge, a woman named Patricia Walcott, with whom I had a professional acquaintance spanning many years, reviewed Victor's filing and the supporting documentation over the weekend. On Monday morning, she issued an emergency order staying the guardianship proceedings and directing the county clerk to flag Patel's submission for urgent review. She also forwarded the matter to the county DA's office, given the evidence of potential fraud on the court. The 2 calls Sarah Chen had placed had gone to the FBI field office and to the United States Attorney for our district, a man named Martin Holloway, who had appeared before me 17 times over his career, and who was not, to characterize him accurately, someone who set aside federal bribery referrals. Dr. Patel was contacted by the State Medical Board on Tuesday, by federal investigators on Wednesday. His attorney reached out to Victor's office Thursday morning to indicate that Patel wished to discuss a cooperation arrangement.
That arrangement, finalized over the following week, produced a complete account of Monica's initial approach to him, the 2 cash payments, the fabricated assessment, the instructions she had given him regarding its contents, and a set of text message exchanges between Dr. Patel and Monica that Robert had suspected existed, and that Patel's attorney now produced voluntarily as part of the cooperation documentation. Patel gave them everything. I spent those days working from home on the Foundation's organizing documents. Victor updated me each evening. Robert filed his final report. I read, I slept, I watered the plants Diane had left in the kitchen window, the way I had done every day since she died. On the 14th day after their departure, Derek and Monica's flight from the Maldives landed at 7:18 in the evening. I know this because I had tracked the flight every day for 2 weeks. I was at my desk reading when Victor called at 7:43. "They're in custody, Jess," he said. "Both of them." I thanked him. I closed my book. I went to bed. I was not at the airport. There was no need. The federal government is entirely capable of processing an arrest without a retired judge standing in the arrivals terminal. What the public record now reflects is this. 2 federal agents met Derek and Monica at the gate as they came through customs. Monica was placed under arrest on 4 counts: conspiracy to commit federal bribery under Title 18, elder financial abuse under the state statute, fraud on the court in connection with the fabricated psychiatric assessment, and wire fraud in connection with the financial transfers. Derek was detained for questioning and released pending further proceedings.
Monica's attorney, retained the following morning, filed immediately to suppress certain evidence. The motion was denied. The evidence was, as Victor had ensured, assembled with precisely the care that a matter always going to federal court requires. Dr. Patel surrendered his medical license voluntarily the week after his cooperation agreement was formalized. He entered a guilty plea to federal bribery charges and was sentenced to 22 months probation, 300 hours of community service, and a permanent bar from clinical practice. His psychiatric assessment was formally stricken from the court record by Judge Walcott, who described it in her written order as, and I want to be precise here because I reread this sentence 3 times, a fabrication of exceptional audacity directed at a man whose professional career was spent identifying precisely this kind of fraud. I thought Diane would have appreciated that sentence. Derek's position required more careful handling. He had not, the evidence established, known the specific mechanics of Monica's arrangement with Dr. Patel. He had known about the guardianship petition. He had signed it as petitioner. He had known that Monica had located a psychiatric professional. He had known his name was on the real estate inquiry and the investment firm correspondence. He had understood at some level that the authority he was about to be granted had been obtained through means he had not examined closely enough to understand. I have written opinions about exactly this category of knowing. It is not called innocence. It is called willful blindness, and it carries its own legal and moral weight. Derek entered a deferred prosecution arrangement, full cooperation with federal investigators, complete financial restitution of all costs incurred in responding to the fraudulent petition, and a permanent relinquishment of any future claim on my estate. He and Monica filed for divorce before the criminal proceedings concluded. I spoke to Derek once during this period. He did not attempt to explain himself. He said he was sorry. I told him that sorry was a beginning and not a destination, and that if he wanted to understand what a destination looked like, he should spend serious time thinking about what he had actually done and what it revealed about who he had allowed himself to become. He said he understood. I told him to call me in 2 months. Monica was convicted on all 4 counts. She was sentenced to 28 months in federal custody, followed by 3 years of supervised release and full financial restitution. I did not attend the sentencing. I had work to do. The Diane Caldwell Foundation for Elder Legal Rights was formally established 4 months after Monica's arrest. Its primary mission is providing legal representation and advocacy to elderly individuals facing fraudulent guardianship proceedings, because I know with professional certainty that what was attempted against me is attempted against thousands of Americans every year. I know this because I spent 34 years on the bench seeing it, and I know that most of those thousands of people do not have a former law clerk who is a federal judge, or a 20-year relationship with Victor Lang, or 30 decades of training in identifying exactly this kind of fraud. Most of them are simply alone, frightened, uncertain about what to do when a certified letter arrives from the county probate court informing them that someone has decided, without their knowledge or consent, that they are no longer capable of determining their own life. The foundation has, in its first year of operation, intervened in 41 such cases. 38 of those proceedings were vacated, 3 remain in active litigation. The Foundation's general counsel, a woman who spent 8 years as a public defender before we recruited her, tells me we are understaffed and underfunded, and that the demand is larger than anything we anticipated. I told her that is generally the case when you build something worth building. I work on the Foundation's legal review board 3 mornings a week, at my desk, in the study where the certified letter was delivered. The desk Diane always said looked like something I had rescued from a demolition site, which it was. I am not parting with it. There is something I want to say clearly. They sent a certified letter to a retired federal judge informing him that someone had attempted to have him declared legally incompetent. They sent it to a man who had spent 34 years reading these documents, who had written the opinions that defined what fraudulent guardianship looks like under federal law, who had sentenced people from the federal bench for doing exactly what they were attempting to do. They did all of this while sitting on a beach in the Maldives, having concluded, apparently, that grief made me something other than the person I had spent my entire adult life becoming. Grief did not make me something other than I was. It clarified what is there. Diane used to say that difficulty is not an obstacle, it is diagnostic. It shows you what was always there, now that the easier layers have been removed. 34 years on the federal bench and 31 years of being married to a woman who was almost always right about things, those are not qualities that a certified letter from the county probate court removes. They are what you find when you look clearly. I am still on the bench in the only sense that matters now. I am still deciding. The Foundation is still filing motions, still vacating fraudulent orders, still making the phone calls that change the outcome for people who did not know where to turn. Derek called 2 months after I told him to, then again a month after that. We are somewhere. I do not know yet what it will become, but it is built on what I actually know about him and what he is actually doing, which is the only foundation worth building anything on. Still deciding. Still here.